Well, welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have a special guest, Danny Brassell, joining us. He's a well-known guy from speaking, 3,500 stages, 19 books, maybe even more coming down the pipeline. We'll talk more about that today. But he's teaching people how to be on stages and craft a well-managed story. I mean, so many times people want to speak, but they just have no idea what to speak on, or actually to even the audience actually pay attention. And that's what kind of things that he specializes in. We're going to talk about some of that. Before we dive in, if you like this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe. And down in the description below, we'll have the links to Danny so you can follow him and connect with him, but also a free workshop. For anybody that's wanting to grow online and build an online business, we're going to have a free workshop because sometimes people struggle with knowing how to leverage AI and build sales teams to really kind of buy back their time. And that resource is going to be free to you for everybody that's listening in. Danny, thank you for joining us. One of the questions I ask everybody right as we join the podcast is, what is high performance? Like, what does that look like to you over the years of academia and speaking on stages and running businesses? What does that look like to you and some of the people that you've coached and taught over the years?
A high performance is always, well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Nathan. I appreciate you. I appreciate you spreading some joy in the world. We need a lot more of you. To me, high performance is always giving your best. You can never, it was Teddy Roosevelt who said comparison is the thief of joy. So as long as you're better than you were yesterday, you're doing a great job. I get irritated when I'm speaking at events and a person calls himself a thought leader. I always like to ask my audience, raise your hand if you need another thought. A thought leader. I'm a results leader. Your results are what matter to me, not your thoughts. And so high performance to me is giving your best and getting the result you want.
And now tell the audience a little bit more about like what you do and how you help serve people.
So I co-founded a company a few years ago with my friends, Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and Dave Ward. It's called the Well-Crafted Story Workshop. I always call us the professor, the performer, and the producer because my background is in academia. Coach Jimmy used to be an actor on Broadway, and Dave used to be an attorney who worked with firms on AI in Silicon Valley. So we mesh really well together. And what we do is we help people get more clients. And I believe that the fastest way to get more clients is through speaking. And so I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
That's so true. I mean, I tell my clients all the time, the major things that you're hiring for me is two things: results, which are leads and revenue. It's like, if I can help people get more money, and then the ultimate leading lagging indicator of that is that you need more leads. And so speaking on stages is way different than running ads or like doing a little reel or a post, because it's like one-to-one or one-to-many, and it gives you that authority and clout automatically. So I'm looking forward to diving into more some of these tactics, and wait toward the end if you're listening, because that's going to be where we're going to really touch on that. But I want to ask you, Danny, what's the origin story of all of this? Like, how did you get into all of this? I mean, I know that many entrepreneurs that I speak to are just cut from a different cloth, and it often starts at a lemonade stand or, hustling, a candy bar at someone's house or something. Bring us to the beginning of why you're cut different and what you do and how you got to the point of success.
Well, Nathan, if I was going to write an autobiography, it would probably be titled Pivots, because I feel like I've already lived 9 lives. 30 years ago, I was a journalist. I got to cover President Bush Sr. in the 1992 presidential election. I had a great job. I got to meet every editor of every major daily. One editor offered me a job working the city beat for $16,500 a year. And then a friend told me they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles in the inner city for $25,000 a year. So I became a teacher for the noblest of reasons, for the high pay. And I actually fell in love with teaching. I've actually taught all age levels, from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach English as a second language at the University of Southern California. And in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam, and we lost everything. And I could give you the woe is me story, but I'm a positive person. I like to look at the lessons learned. First of all, my wife is my soulmate. I put her through the ringer and she stuck right by me. She's an incredible human being. Second of all, money's no longer my ultimate motivation, because I learned you can lose that overnight, no problem. Third, I try not to judge other people, because if I was somebody who looked at what I had done, I would have said, well, you deserve that. But now I realize, if you don't know everything about a person, you really don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed to admit, but the more I read the Bible, I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And then fifth, I didn't want to declare bankruptcy, and my accountant said, well, you have to make this much more money this year to avoid bankruptcy. And so I started speaking on the side. and I hit that number right on the number. The next year, Nathan, he gave me a much higher number, and I hit that number right on the number. So in year three, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically, during one of the worst economic downturns in American history, I was able to build up a highly lucrative speaking business, which attracted the attention of a lot of famous individuals and companies who started asking me to coach them, which I resisted for a long time. You need to know this about Nathan. You need to know this about me, Nathan. As a teacher, I have a very high standard for my students. I will not let you fail. I'm going to be on your back, holding you accountable until you succeed. And I resisted, but now I actually, it's probably the most gratifying thing I've ever done because I work primarily with entrepreneurs, business owners, executives who are highly motivated and they do the work. And it's very gratifying to me watching them exceed all expectations. And some people have had stage fright. Now they look as comfortable as can be on stage. Most of them have really increased their business and their volume. But really, what's most important is they're having a very positive impact. And that's important to me. I have a rule. I don't work with jerks. I work with people that have integrity, that want to make the world a better place.
What was your first book? Like, I feel like speaking and writing a book is almost in tandem.
The first book was an academic book I wrote in 2004, and I was so disappointed. It's right here on the shelf. I was disappointed because it was spiral bound because I was like, that's not what I wanted my name on the spine. And so that inspired me to write my second book. And then I'm like, well, I can do better than that. And so every subsequent book is really me challenging myself to write something either completely unique or just something that I think needs to be said. I think it was Toni Morrison who said, "You haven't read the book that you have always wanted to read, then it's your responsibility to write it." And so I try to write books that I'd like to read.
What's the count now of how many books you've written?
At 19, but right now I'm writing 20, 21, and 22, and they're all completely different. And I won't mention them because it's always a jinx if you mention it before you've actually finished it. But they're all
And then how
really
many
long.
speeches?
What's that?
100 stages, I think it is, or
Yeah,
more
four
with.
continents. I still average about 100 speeches a year all over the place. And primarily when I'm speaking, I'd say probably even today, 80% of my presentations are working with schools, trying to encourage the teachers and the principals not to quit, or to work with the parents to get their kids to love reading, or working with the students, showing them strategies on how to love reading.
Yeah. Well, I want to get your take on this one, or just on a personal level, because you and I both have kids, and being an entrepreneur, we have the internal wiring that we can see the vision of what's possible,
Mm.
but sometimes to the detriment to our families, our spouse, our kids. How have you been able to balance the drive that you have to help, and but also the challenge of having to travel and be away from the family and all?
So I've actually never really had that challenge because I practice what I
Okay.
preach. I've hired lots of great coaches throughout my life, and two of my favorite coaches were father son, Steve and Rob Schallenberger, and they have a program called Becoming Your Best. And what separated them from a lot of coaches I've had is they didn't mark success just in terms of business, financial success. And so they gave me a strategy. I still use their annual planner to this day. So every Saturday morning, I get up and for about 45 minutes, I pre-week plan for the week coming up. And the way their planner is organized is there's 7 areas that you can make goals for, and you make 5 goals for each area. And so you have to bear with me. I used to be a teacher, so everything is it either rhymes or it's alliterative. And so I came up with my 7 F's. And so every week I have 35 goals, 5 goals in each category. So I have focus goals, fitness goals, financial goals, family goals, faith goals, fun goals, and fulfillment goals. And after I plug into the week all of the different things I have on my calendar, then I start plugging in those goals on when I'm going to accomplish them. So family's a priority because I have the check mark. I need to spend, so
Mhm.
one example is I do book dates with my wife and 3 kids. And so every one of them, I have a different book I read with them. So they're older now. My oldest daughter, she likes the Game of Thrones. And so we're reading Song of Fire and Ice, which I'm not thrilled with because there's a lot of language and situations there, but it makes her happy. So we're reading that together. My son, I don't know why he's interested in personal development. Maybe the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I'm reading with him How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, which is a great book.
That's a great one. Yeah.
My youngest daughter, for some reason, she likes literature, and so I'm reading Great Gatsby with her. I hate that book; it drives me nuts. But now that I hate the story. Now that I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, F. Scott Fitzgerald, he knows how to write a sentence. And then
Yeah,
with my
yeah,
wife, I'm reading this great series of books. I actually really enjoy it called the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower, and it takes place in Elizabethan England. It's about this woman and her three guy friends, and it's like I can't believe Reese Witherspoon hasn't bought the film rights because it's just a fantastic story. And
right,
so I always tell people that, I have a friend that he teaches people time management. And I always say, well, there's no such thing as time management. Last time I checked, everybody has 24 hours in their day. There is a thing called priority management. And so, very
right.
long winded answer to your question is when you make your family a priority, they are a priority. If you make your business your only priority, all your all it's going to be is business. But I don't believe you can be perfectly rounded, but I do believe that you can devote attention. Maybe it's just make sure at least one day a week you're doing this or that. I think it's healthier to devote a little bit of time each day rather than one big chunk once a week.
I love you that you brought this up because intentionality with every area of your life is so important. I think there's some people that miss that, right? Or they prioritize things to the detriment of other things. Like you can see great people that have dented the world, like, Steve Jobs, yet he didn't prioritize his wife and his kids and they all hated him and left him before. And then his health got, bad, and so he was great in some aspects, but just it didn't work out in the other aspects. And so being intentional, I think of that too, of just like the wheel of life of identifying all the areas you want to do great in and really kind of striving toward identifying that intention. I love that. And I was sitting down with a group of guys I meet with that are in my community group, at church, and we were going through a book called Wild at Heart. It's a great book, from John Eldridge and all. But I was talking about my weekly plan, similar to you, of like, hey, how you organize things and calculate everything, and it just blew them away. I was like, wow, I've been doing this for a long time. I guess people know. I mean, I just thought it was known, like people that just everybody does this, but it's not the case. And I think it could be that we're just high achievers and we're thinking about growth and tech, like how to advance and be there way better than, and try to do better with our time because we have a limited.
I mean, for example, like I think most people waste their time on social media on these things. I'm not putting down social media, but I think people spend far too much time trying to impress other people and not reveal their true selves. I think this is a great tool, this cell phone, when used properly. So what I do is I use the calendar and I have updates all the time. So for
Yeah.
example, I'm a bad Christian. I'm trying to learn scripture. And so right now, every day at 4:29, I have a reminder. I've been practicing Ephesians 4:29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful in building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. All right, good. I think I'm getting there. I read the book Dune, and there's a great thing called the Litany Against Fear. So every morning at 9:11 in the morning, I have this update to practice. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is a little death that brings total obliteration. Face my fear. I will permit it to pass over and through me. And when the fear has passed, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. So I'm practicing it.
That's good.
I got married on December 20th. So every day at 12:20, I have an alert to tell my wife I love her. And it really gets to what you were just talking about, being intentional, because people, that's not romantic. I'm like, actually, it's very romantic. The fact that I schedule it, it gets done. A lot of people, they have all these great intentions, but they never do anything. That's what I was sharing with you before the podcast. I'm very proud of what you've accomplished. You have over 100 episodes of this podcast. How many of your friends say, hey, I want to start a podcast, and they never do anything? Most people don't do anything. They talk, but I mean, it's like, that's the same reason I don't get in political conversations. People love to gripe all you want. Those people you're griping about, they did something you didn't do. They ran for office. Like, be part of the solution. Anybody can gripe, be part of the solution.
Yep. Yeah. I want to get your take on speaking now as you're just kind of shifting gears. Like, why is it that so many people, they never do it, right? For one, or they have a fear of it, or the seems like that if people do it, they do it for a short season and then they give it up. Why is that?
Well, I mean, definitely the fear factor. Most of the people that I work with, they aren't exactly interested or excited to get on stage, or they're terrified of getting on stage. But I think it's the same reason I love that you have a podcast. It's a great way to build a platform and to build trust with your audience. You're an authentic person. And the reason I know you're authentic is I listen to your podcast and I know what you're about. I think it's basically I get different dates with you all the time. Like, Nathan did this and he served. And that's, to me, that's one of the most important things that I try to convey to clients is when you're on stage, you have a responsive and your stage, expand your mind of a stage. A podcast is a stage. A one-on-one conversation is a stage. It doesn't have to just be a ballroom. A boardroom is a stage. A church pulpit is a stage, but it can be a one-on-one conversation. But no matter what stage you choose to be on, I believe that you have a responsibility. Donald Miller has a wonderful company called Story Brand, and he says something which I completely agree with. He says, when you're on stage, you're the guide, and your job is to make your audience into the hero. You're Yoda, your audience is Luke Skywalker. You're
Mhm.
Mr. Miyagi, your audience is Daniel LaRusso. And I think when you're on stage, you have a responsibility to serve your audience. I mean, I hate the term servant leadership. I'm a person that loves words. By definition, a leader is a servant. So when you're saying servant leader, I'm like, well, you're being repetitive. The best leaders always, Cynic has a book about leaders eat last. That's exactly right. You should be making sure all of your people are taken care of. I mean, I guess it's contrary to what they say on the plane, put your own oxygen mask on first and then serve other people. I think leaders are always, I mean, maybe that's what it's for, is because they realize, leaders always want to help other people before they help themselves.
Mhm. And then why is that sometimes people start and then they have a season where they just don't do it anymore? It seems like the churn for speakers is high. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong.
Well, I think a lot of people, they give up too quickly. I mean, for example, there's two ways you get better at speaking. First of all, you need to watch lots of speakers. I watch 10 speakers a day. I watch politicians. I watch comedians. I watch televangelists. I watch them in front of big groups, in front of small groups, in front of men, in front of women. Here, I'll give your audience a ninja strategy right now. I watch a lot of televised award shows because when the person wins the Academy Award, they only have 45 seconds to connect with their audience. I want to see how they use their time. Now, most people waste their time. They get on stage. They say, I want to thank God. I want to thank the Academy. It's stupid. Nobody's paying attention. But every now and then, a person does a magnificent job. So a few years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Walker who won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Now, this is the Academy Awards. The important people are in the front of the room, the actors. Cameras scanning the crowd. You can see nobody's paying attention because this is film editing. And Joe Walker gets on stage. He's British. He speaks very slowly and deliberately. He says, a lot of people don't know this, but when phrased properly, the term Academy Award nominee can be used as an insult. Now the camera's scanning the audience and people are leaning in like, what's he talking about? He says, for example, yesterday I got in an argument with my 17-year-old daughter and she said, well, Academy Award nominee Joe Walker. All of a sudden you see everybody laughing hysterically. He gets off stage. Denzel Washington wants to meet him. Sandra Bullock wants to meet him. Brad Pitt wants to meet him. Time magazine said it was one of the highlights of the Academy Awards. Well done, Joe Walker. Within 45 seconds, you just connected with America. So the first way you get better at speaking is watching lots of speakers. Second way, I've been blessed. I shared with you earlier, I invest in coaches and mentors all the time. And one of my coaches was a guy by the name of Jim Rohn. And Jim used to say, you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Translation, you got to do the reps. I mean, even the smallest towns in America have a Lions Club, Optimist Club, Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club. There's schools, there's churches, synagogues, temples, chambers of commerce. You need to practice. And a lot of people, they give up too quickly. I have a client, Jason, that I started working with 3 years ago. Jason was 22 years old and he was a negative Nelly. He's, oh, I can't get on any stages. I don't know anybody. Being very difficult. I finally had it. I'm like, all right, Jason, do you have a Facebook account? He's like, yeah. We're going on Facebook Live right now. He got all nervous. I'm like, you're doing it. We just put together a 45-minute speech. Do it. You're doing it live right now on Facebook Live. So he did it. Woman from Ontario, Canada, accidentally watched him, and he stunk. I made him do it again the next day. I didn't watch him the next day, and he said that 3 people watched him, and I guarantee you he stunk, but he didn't stink as bad as he did the first day. Well, here's the story about Jason. He's gone on Facebook Live every single day for the last 3 years, including Christmas. Now has 6,000 people in his Facebook community. And last year he sold them almost $1 million worth of merchandise. And he's all proud of the $1 million. And I'm happy for him for that. But the reason I use him as an example, he did the work. He's doing it. all the time. And so, the very long answer again to your short question, I think the reason a lot of people stop is they don't have that success. Well, success doesn't happen the first time, doesn't necessarily happen the 10th time. But the more you do this, it's kind of like my youngest daughter, she's learning how to drive. And I love watching her because when she gets in the car, she's adjusting her car mirrors and she makes sure her hands are at the 10 o'clock and the 2 o'clock positions. Nathan, I know in a year she'll be eating a Big Mac, driving with one hand, trying to put on lipstick, jamming the radio because it'll be automatic because she's done the reps. She'll feel comfortable. Same thing with speaking. There's not a single person I've ever worked with who doesn't feel more comfortable after having lots of reps.
I wanted to get your take too on the opportunity that most people are missing, right? I think like you're a big advocate of getting on stages. Why is that so important right now today that you get on it? What's the opportunity lost for not doing it?
It's a crowded marketplace. I mean, all you have to do is look at social media. Everybody's hawking something. And I think getting on a stage is your opportunity to really connect with human beings and show an audience what you're all about. I've never seen so many people trying to get on stages with so little to say. And to me, it's really important for you as a business owner or whatever you're doing is if you really want to show what you're all about, a great opportunity to actually be you on your stage, whatever that stage might be.
When you talk about results, what does that do for people, right? It's like you definitely get the reps, and that's important to have speaking, having confidence. Like I found after leading sales teams and doing sales, like the two big attributes of great salespeople is that they have confidence in knowing who they are, right? And then they have a conviction of what they're selling.
Mm.
Right. And I feel like even in speaking, it's daunting for some people to do something that's different. And I think that's one of the biggest fears is actually being and speaking from stages for whatever reason. I think just the fear of disapproval or whatever from people and peers or whatever, but also just the ability of the impact and the results that it can give. So like the leads and the revenue that from it, from one to many is why people are in different stages, like we talked about, or webinars or in person or whatever. What kind of results do those typically have, and how do you typically do it? Because I know sometimes people even sell from stages, but I think there's less of that a little bit more now. There's different ways to approach it. What's your take on how to approach that?
First of all, there's nothing wrong with selling on a stage. A lot of people they want to sell without feeling salesy, and I help them with that. Here's my advice: if you want to sell without feeling salesy, don't sell. Serve. Look at your audience like they are dying, and you have the antidote. And if they don't get your antidote, they will die. That's very important. The way I measure results, I mean, I have clients that'll tell me I got a standing ovation. I'm like, that's great. They'll say, "Hey, people think I'm a great speaker." I'm like, "That's great. That's not how I measure results. I only measure results in one way and one way only. Does your audience decide to take the next step with you?" Now, that could be a next step. It could be that next step could be an unpaid next step, like subscribe to my podcast or book a free phone call. It can be a paid next step, like buy my product or invest in my coaching program. But I'm measuring success. I definitely want your presentation to move hearts, but more importantly, I want it to move the needle. There's not a church on the planet that doesn't need ties. There's not a politician on the planet that doesn't need votes. There's not a business on the planet that doesn't need customers. And so we're trying to move that needle, whatever the result. And there's two mistakes I see in almost every presentation at first. I love Brene Brown. She talks about vulnerability, and she's making a really important point. I always tell people stop bragging, stop sharing your successes, start talking about your failures, because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they have all failed. And the more you talk about your own failures, the more your audience is going to see themselves in you, and you're going to have a real authentic connection with the audience.
Mm,
The second biggest mistake I see most people make is they don't have one clear call to action. They have multiple calls to action. You actually demonstrated this at the beginning of your podcast. You told everybody to like and subscribe. That's two choices, Nathan. You're going to get a much lower rate because you gave choices. I always, again, former teacher, choices
yeah.
confuse and cause you to lose. There's a reason Trader Joe's is the number one grocery store by volume in America. And the reason is when you go to any major grocery store, like a Ralph's or a Smith's or a Kroger or whatever the grocery store, you go there to buy mustard. There's 38 different types of mustard. Go to Trader Joe's to buy mustard. There's one. It's called mustard. Makes the decision for you. That's what a clear call to action is.
Yeah. What is the formula for speaking? I feel like there's probably a cadence or a formula and essence of like the script in itself that's a really good speech, or is it different? Like, what do you teach your clients?
Lots of different strategies, but Coach Jimmy and I, we came up with a process we call the 5 C's process. Again, former teacher, everything has to be alliterative. And so
Love
those
it.
5 C's are clarity, connect, content, call to action, and close. And so we'll take them one at a time. So before you write a presentation, you need to have clarity. There are 2 questions you have to ask. And if you can answer these questions, you're in pretty good shape. But I can tell you right now, 95% of the people I work with cannot answer one or both of these questions succinctly. Those 2 questions are, who is your audience and what is the problem that you solve? When you can answer those questions, then we can start writing your presentation. Now, there's no disputing that the most important part of your presentation is the beginning of your presentation. You have to connect with your audience because the first 5 minutes of a presentation, your audience is making a decision. Am I going to be present or am I going to be engaged? You want them engaged. And so a really great presentation, you gotta wrap. So again, I have to make everything into it rhymes. And so in the first minutes of your presentation, you got to wrap. So wrap stands for you got to show you're relatable, you have to demonstrate your authority, and you have to show your audience your purpose. And so relatable means that, oh, I'm just like you. I've had the problem that you've had. Authority is, and I solved that problem. And then purpose is, and now I work with people just like you to make sure you don't have to suffer the way I suffered. You do that, you're doing a great job of connecting with your audience. Then you get into the content. We talked about content. To me, the most important thing about content is you should be helping your audience. I mean, whether they choose to do business with you or not, they gave you their most precious asset, their time. I think you have a responsibility to give them a win. Then you get to the call to action. And we talked about the importance of having a very clear call to action. But this is a mistake I see a lot of people make. They end their presentation with a call to action. And that is a problem because you have to understand there's 2 types of people in your audience. And I'm going to be stereotypical and I'm going to say it's a married couple. So the guy is what I call Joe Friday. So Joe Friday is sitting there with his arms crossed, asking himself, how much is this going to cost? How long does it take? What do I got to do? And a very clear call to action answers all those questions to satisfy Joe Friday. You got to understand the wife is Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts, she's not as interested in about those things. She just wants to feel good. I want to end feeling good. And so that's why you have a really compelling emotional close to get people pumped up so that they don't consider working with you. They're running and tripping over themselves to work with you. And so we accomplish that in lots of different ways. So for example, I was working with a woman a couple of weeks ago. She's a nutritionist and she couldn't think of a close. And I'm like, well, what do you want your audience to do? She said, well, I want them to understand they can't do this diet alone. They need my help to give them nutrition strategies. I said, oh, so you need to hire an expert story. She's like, what? Yeah. So I'll demonstrate. So this is just one type of ending. So here's a hire an expert story. A hire an expert story has nothing to do with what she's talked about. She's been talking about nutrition, nutrition, nutrition. So now what we want to do is we want to end our presentation with a different type of story that is a metaphor for what you want the audience to do. So it's a hire an expert story. So I say, I'll leave you with this. Many years ago, my wife and I had theater tickets. So we were dressed to the nines, all excited, driving to the theater when we got a flat tire. My wife said, well, I'll call AAA. You don't have to call AAA. I'm a man. I can fix a flat tire. Well, I went to the trunk, opened up the trunk. I got the spare tire. Then I got the pumper thing. And then I got the big jack thing that you take out the nuts with. And 7 minutes later, I have grease all over me. I have not fixed the flat tire. My wife is shaking her head like I could have done so much better than this guy. Well, unbeknownst to me, she had already called AAA. And this tow truck shows up, and a 17-year-old punk hops out of the truck and fixes the flat tire in 3 minutes flat. Now, I think there are times in life when all of us think we can do it on our own. But if you want to save time, you want to save money, and you want to save a whole lot of embarrassment and headache, hire an expert. So what I've done there, Nathan, is I've created a metaphor. So now people, they're not just thinking about the nutrition program. They're thinking, you know what, I can't do this on my own. But there's things I've tried. What they've done is they've come up with their own story of a time they tried to do. I remember when I tried to fix the toilet and, yeah, this might be a whole lot easier if I hire her to help me. So that's the difference between a good presentation and a really effective presentation. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to drive your numbers because, one of my mentors was a guy named Zig Ziglar. And towards the end of his life, he did a survey to figure out his effect on his audience. And out of every 100 responses he got, one person said, "You were a great speaker." And the other 99 was, "Oh, I loved your books. I loved your tapes. I loved your courses." And he realized, and everybody listening has to understand, you can serve your audience a little bit on stage. You can have a dramatic effect on them when they invest in your product or in your coaching program or whatever your course, your online course, whatever it is that you want them to.
It's so true, man. I love it. And I think what hearing a lot of is that you've had a lot of mentors over the years. And I've invested so much over the years too. And that's been so critical for the success that you've had. Why is it that even people that they're always on the fence. Like you and I have these calls sometimes or sales calls where it's just like they don't believe in themselves. They don't know if they want that type of success or that, or even the effort or money to even spend on something like that. But you and I have invested quite a bit in our future. How has that evolved over the years for what you've been able to accomplish so far?
It's obvious. I guess it's not obvious. And to you, it's obvious too. I don't understand why it's not obvious to a lot of people. You look at the highest performing people in anything, they have coaches. I mean, Tiger Woods, greatest golfer on the planet. He has a putting coach. He has a driving coach. He has a mental coach. Maybe he should have hired a relationship coach, but if the guy knew I need to invest in this. I mean, I work with a lot of high performance individuals, a lot of athletes, and they understand, hey, if you get me just this much better, it can make a huge difference.
Hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, you and I, it's not even a secret, and it's amazing to me that so many people ignore how important
Yeah,
it is for somebody else to guide you along the way. I mean, even the apostles had Jesus.
that's right. That's right. Let me ask you some tactics here. But now that say I got a speech down, right? Now I need to get in front of people. I need to practice it a bunch. So maybe I go to free places and everything. What does someone do to get on 100 stages a year or even, a quarter of that?
So again, when I started well, first of all, when you're starting out, what I always recommend to people is you should start with the group that you know. So I had experience as an inner city public school teacher. And so the first groups I spoke to were inner city public school teachers. And then I started speaking to just public school teachers and then all teachers of all ages. And then I went to parent groups and then to administrators. And then I was in a mastermind years ago. And one of the guys in my mastermind had a very successful business. And he asked me to motivate his sales team. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm experienced enough I don't think I'm really qualified. And he looked at me like I was an idiot. He's like, "Danny, if you can get inner city middle school boys to read Shakespeare, I'm pretty sure you can motivate my sales team." And he did me a huge service, Nathan. I'm like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way." I was just trying to speak though and land speaking engagements because I needed to. I spoke for free all the time. There's nothing wrong with speaking for free. Here's my strategy, a recommendation to people that are doing that. Any speech I've ever given, I've done a letter of agreement, a contract with them. And so when I first started speaking, believe me, I wasn't making this much money, but in my contract, it would say, I am willing to waive my $5,000 speaking fee, which I'd never gotten $5,000 in exchange for, and then I asked for 10 different things. I want a video testimonial from your president. I want 3 written testimonials from audience members. If you're videotaping, I want a copy of the video. Um, uh, like the Rotary Club often has monthly newsletters. I'm like, I want to have a column in that monthly newsletter for the next year. Um, I want the emails of all the emails and the cell phone numbers of everybody who attend. I mean, I don't remember all 10 of them, but by doing that, I was able to build up lots of testimonials, lots of video, and I was off to the races. I was working with a gentleman yesterday, and he wants to make $10,000 a speech, and I said, "Well, do you look like a $10,000 speaker?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, do you have a website?" "No." "Do you have video?" "No." "Do you have a brochure?" "No." $1,000 speaker has all those things. And so you need to make sure that if you're going to play the game, that you have all the tools that you need. So that would be my advice and there's nothing wrong with that. I love that site. It's actually my favorite thing to do with people is show them how to build. I mean, I have One of my clients is now very famous, and 8 years ago, she was just photocopying stuff on a photocopier, and these. I mean, it looked like a garage sale. And now she doesn't have to photocopy things anymore, and she's earning $75,000 of speech.
Yeah. How important is having a book doing speeches?
A book is a good thing. I don't think it's essential. I think it establishes credibility. I mean, people, wow, yeah. I mean, there's things that I've done just to establish credibility. So when you say, he's written 19 books. A lot of people are like, wow, he's done 19 books. I made sure to do a TED talk. So people are like, oh, he did a TED talk. I wrote a chapter for one of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and people are like, oh, he wrote a chapter in a Chicken Soup for the Soul book. I've appeared on TV. Oh, he's appeared on TV. So those are just things to check off your list. I mean, I still haven't been on Oprah. I still haven't, there's plenty of things I still haven't done that would add credibility to me. But yeah, so a book is a great way to establish credibility, but also you do want to make sure the book has something to do with what you're speaking about. I mean, that'll
Yeah.
help you out quite a bit.
But the beginning of everything, I mean, I can imagine now after you built some relationships with event managers that you're getting referred from quite a few people and you get referrals, quite a bit. But at the beginning stage, I feel like it's just like sales. It's a numbers game. So you got to reach out to a ton and you got to expect rejection or you have to do a lot of free things. What's the strategy at the very beginning, for someone getting on? And is that them doing it, or is there something that, that you're leveraging now with a team or specific event managers that allow you to get in front of those stages and in those doors quicker? Or what's that look like?
This is what I like about you, Nathan, because you have that sales background and you already said it. It's a numbers game. I mean, it's like this, prayer is not a strategy. I support prayer all you want, but it's not a very good. I mean, there's a story of the guys hanging from the cliff, and he's like, "Is anybody there?" And all of a sudden, the heavens part, and he hears this voice: "It is God, son. I am here. Anybody else?" Because sometimes you need somebody to help pull you up. And so I'm a big believer. I mean, if you're starting with nothing, my recommendation is you have something, they have something. Do a barter, do a trade. Like we'll use you and me. You have much better experience in sales and marketing and AI strategies than me. I know I could learn from you. Well, let's say I can't afford you. Well, then I would say, well, Nathan, can I help you create a well-crafted story, a presentation you can deliver again and again to get more clients? You're like, wow, yeah, that would be great. Well, that's scratching each other's backs. That's a great barter. And I think I've never understood why people don't do that. I mean, I gave a guy 10 of my old clients. I gave another speaker last week, and he was just dumbfounded. He's like, why would you give me your past customers? I mean, you're my competition. I looked at him like, well, that's where you and I differ. I don't have any competition. I just have potential collaborators. The world's a big place, man. I always have wondered why speakers don't make four friends and give all of their contacts to those four friends and let the four friends give all their contacts to you. Nobody's going to hire you to speak every single year. So why don't you make four friends and then every fifth year you can speak at that event, but then you're also getting leads from other places. Obviously, yeah, if you have a budget, there's ways to do it. I mean, I have a budget now and, referrals will only take you so far. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
It's not a
I
very good
agree.
strategy. You really do need professionals. And that's why anybody listening, I would encourage them to work with you because I know what you are doing, Nathan. You need a system. You have to have. When I was in a fraternity in college, they made me rush chair. I knew I needed to get 100 guys to Taco Bell night because out of the 100, we would give 20 bids to guys. And out of the 20 bids, 14 guys would accept the bids. And out of the 14 guys that accepted, 11 would eventually become brothers. But to get to 11, I had to start with 100. It's, one of my mentors, a guy named Jack Canfield, who wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul book, he has a great saying. He says, SW, 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 SW. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. It's a numbers game. You need those no's. No, 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 no. Every time is a rep. Every time is a rep. You're getting more and more. I mean, I get excited now when people tell me no because it means I'm getting closer to the yes. Need
Right.
you need a system is what I'm basically born. Again, I need to get better at my sound bites, but the direct answer to your question is referrals aren't a very good system. It's not a very dependable system. You need something that's a proven system. I know that the people that you work with, you have a system. It's not prayer and it's not referrals. There's actually a strategic system on why you're doing that.
How much of AI and a team do you leverage now in your business?
don't understand why people don't use AI like crazy. And people just think of ChatGPT. I'm like, well, ChatGPT is one form of AI. I mean, I think for writing, use Claude for my writing. For some reason,
Yes.
you fill up Claude with a whole bunch of things you've written and ask it to write things. It sounds like you. I'm like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah.
is amazing. And that's been my experience. People can debate me on that. I mean, you know more about AI than I do. But the people that fear AI, I'm like, AI is just a tool. People
Hmm.
are always doom and gloom. Whenever a new technology, oh, the internet, ugh, that's the death of us. The internet. The Greeks 3,000 years ago thought society was going to hell in a handbasket because people had to write things down. They're like, what? You can't remember it? Society's going down the toilet. It's always been the same. It's the same thing as people griping about politicians. I'm like, you're never going to be
Yeah.
satisfied. Anybody can gripe. But AI to me, I use ChatGPT all the time to brainstorm ideas with me. What I love about AI is it's taught me a very valuable lesson, Nathan. It's no longer important to have the answer. What's important is to learn how to ask the right question. AI
That's
can come
right.
up with the answer, but I need to come up with the prompt to get me to that answer. And it's actually a
Hmm.
great strategy. One of the first things you're taught is be less interesting and more interested. That's what you're doing. You're practicing those questioning skills all the time, just having the podcast.
Yeah. Andy, I could talk to you a lot, with different questions around techniques and strategies. I've enjoyed our conversation. How can people follow you and connect with you more?
Well, as a thank you to you and your audience having to bear with me for all these stories today, Nathan, I want to give everybody a freebie. So if you go to free story guide like a tour guide, freestoryguide.com, I'm going to give everybody their own well-crafted story blueprint. What this is the actual process that Coach Jimmy Dave and I take our clients through on how to create your well-crafted story. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of where do I put this and why do I put this in my speech? And what this means for you is the peace of mind that you actually have a proven system of how to get endless clients. You can get that at freestoryguide.com. And again, I just want to thank you, Nathan, for not just having me on, but providing this podcast because I learned, it's actually better than some of the college courses. I feel like every week is like I'm getting free tuition from you. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thanks for being on. I'll put that link down below for everybody to grab that freebie from you. It's such a good resource, and I want you guys to go check that out. Go check out that free workshop down below as well. And we thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.